Let's go.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the RDH Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Chad. Alongside me is my brother. How you doing, man?
What's up? It's been a while.
It has been a while. And for those of you watching on YouTube, we may be in the greatest game room of all time. This is my pop's game room. Dallas Cowboys galore. Got the Cowboys jerseys on. You know, it's going to be a good episode. Today we're talking about, we're going to hit a little bit of NBA playoffs, talk about the NHL playoffs, Champions League's going on as we speak.
Yeah.
And also, I drafted every team in the NFL for, the 19th straight year in a row, probably. And we're going to go over some draft grades. Tanner, you ready to get into it?
I'm ready.
All right. So first, Tanner's going to hit on a little bit of NBA recap for the playoffs.
Yeah, so with the NBA, honestly, some results that are surprising, but at the same time, some results that are not. Let's hit the first one in the West with the Nuggets and the Suns. We watched one of those games, I think. What are you thinking about this series so far?
I mean, honestly, I think that the Nuggets, I did not give them enough respect going on. Yeah. I'll be honest. I did not think that the Nuggets were, with Jokic and Murray, I didn't think that they could compete with a star-studded cast with Phoenix and Devin Booker and Kevin Durant, but I'm wrong. And the Nuggets are up 3-2 right now on the Suns, and to me, the Nuggets don't look like they can be beaten. But at the same time, KD and Book are going to get hot, and Book stayed hot the whole playoffs.
I know, and it's hard when you look at this series because it's like Phoenix is doing everything they can, but the Nuggets just know how to close out games, and with Jokic, he's just that force that you have, in the middle of the paint. He just breaks you down all game, and eventually, towards the end of it, you're out of gas. You got nothing left.
Nothing.
And we watched it, I think, last night or the night before. It's a clinic, It looks easy to him.
Yeah.
He just goes down there. He wastes time. He just has possession for a lot of it, and it's really impressive. And if they keep going like this, they're looking like a spot in the NBA Finals. I love your Lakers, which is the next
series.
Yeah, the next series we're going to talk about. But I don't know. The Nuggets look really, really good.
The Nuggets look unbeatable. I'll absolutely agree. The Lakers, like you said, I think we'll jump to that series. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. With the Lakers and the Warriors, Lakers are up 3-1. I really do think that the Lakers are going to close out that series tonight. I don't know, but next game for sure. But to bring into your point, I do think the Nuggets are going to get past the Suns. I obviously picked the Suns, and I'll be wrong in that one, but I'm always wrong. You know what I mean? And so that you got the Nuggets that are going to match up against the Lakers, and I think the Lakers are the best defensive team, and I think the Nuggets are the best offensive team. I don't know how. I really don't know how. Jokic is going off, Murray's going off, but that I don't know. There's a lot. They get a lot of players from their bench that does really well. I think they got Aaron Gordon, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and then the Nuggets.
Yeah, and he's. That dude can take flight. My goodness.
It's interesting you say that because I feel like the Lakers also have a lot of depth when it comes to their roster.
The most.
Yeah. I don't remember what it was in the fourth quarter of this past Lakers game. Lonnie Walker used to play for the Spurs, just absolutely closed out the game. I was like, dang, that's kind of impressive.
Nobody saw that coming, and especially when you're getting points from your bench at that level, it's hard to even compete in the NBA. And when you have the Lakers just shutting down Golden State, that's hard to do. Because the thing with Golden State is that if Steph is not, I don't want to say perfect, but a very good game, I think he had at least 30 against the Lakers, if not high 20s, and the Lakers still won. You know what I mean? Because they're getting contributions from their bench, and you can't match that. And if Steph doesn't drop 50, I don't know how they win. They've done it before. They've come back from 3-1 before, but we'll see what happens. I got the Lakers, and then I think the Nuggets are playing the Lakers, and guess what? I said it last podcast. The Lakers are going to beat the Nuggets.
I believe it. I picked Golden State in this series, so. I look like a chump right now,
Well, welcome to my life.
I know. The only if you want to have a team that could possibly come back from 3-1, it's going to be the Lakers,
Yep.
or it's going to be the Warriors.
Oh yeah, the Warriors, absolutely.
Because they just it's Steph. I mean, he's been there, he's done that. But let's move on to the East, and we have the Heat and the Knicks. The Heat are up 3-1. What do you think of this series so far?
I think you got Jimmy Butler. I think it's just that simple. I think Jimmy Butler is literally putting on a clinic, and I didn't think the Knicks were, necessarily going to go that far in the playoffs in the first place. I didn't really think they were going to get out of round one, but they did.
Yeah.
And they match up against the Heat, and the Heat continue to surprise because Jimmy Butler just puts it on his back. And, I mean, you look at the Heat, they barely made the playoffs, right? They're the 8th seed, and they're, right now, going to make it to probably the Eastern Conference Finals. I don't see the Knicks coming back from 3-1, and maybe they win one, but I think the Heat are going to take it, and like I said, Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, the Heat just look like the better team, right? Mm-hmm. In the one game that the Knicks won, Jimmy Butler wasn't playing. I think it's going to be over in 5, maybe 6, but it just doesn't look like the Knicks have, I don't know, the firepower.
No, I don't.
I think they took down a struggling Cavaliers team, and then they matched up against a really hard Heat team who was peaking at the right time, and that's what you want to do in the playoffs. But let's go to the final series in the East. The 76ers and the Boston Celtics. The Sixers are up 3-2. This has been a fun one so far.
Another one I'm eating my words on. I
don't know though.
But you don't know. The series isn't over. It's 3-2. But some stat I saw. I don't remember where I saw it. I know it was on Twitter. I know it's from ESPN. I don't remember who it was. But something along the lines of when a team goes up 3-2, it's pretty much over. It's like a 70+% percentage in that. And I don't know. I don't know if the 76ers can close it off. I do think that Boston wins Game 6.
Really?
I do think Boston win game 6 because
this is Game 6, so they'll be in Philly.
I think they're Philly.
They'll be in Philly.
I have a feeling that series goes 7. I have a feeling that series goes 7. And if it goes 7, then you're in trouble.
Then you don't know.
Yeah, then it's any team's ball game. But the thing is if Embiid gets going at all, it is shown throughout the playoffs that it's over. Mm-hmm. It's over because the Sixers are another team that's pretty deep. I was actually talking with people about how good the Sixers were, today, and it's one of those things, man. All they got to do is win one more game, but right now it's a best of 3 series, and who takes it, right? Or 2 series. It's
hard because the Celtics on paper are just so good. It's hard to just even pick against them. But when the 76ers have just kind of like a dominant play style. I said the other episode, it's almost boring to watch these guys play because they're you just know who's going to win. And I don't know. I still am confident that the Sixers take it home. I don't know if it's 6 or 7 though. I don't know about that. Let's say 6. We'll be confident about it. But yeah, that's pretty much for NBA. Do you have anything else?
No, I think that's it. Then now we're jumping to NHL. Mm-hmm. You have the Seattle Kraken going up against the Dallas Stars. They are tied 2-2 in that series. I've been watching that one with Tanner, and man, the Seattle Kraken looked really good.
Yeah, they did.
Seattle Kraken looked really good last time we watched them, mm-hmm. and this series is so evenly matched. But like I said, it's a 2-2 series. Whoever wins Game 3, I think wins the series. Game 3, whoever goes up 3-2 in the series, I think is gonna take home. Gonna move on into the next round. But my thing is, man, another team I didn't give enough respect to was Seattle. You have a team that is essentially a bunch of players that nobody wanted on their team in an expansion draft. And when you got a bunch of guys with a chip on your shoulder, especially in hockey, get ready to rock and roll because they had their back. And when you have a team like that, it's incredible. But the Dallas Stars are very deep. Mm-hmm. And the Dallas Stars have Joe Pavelski back. Jamie Benn's starting to hit on all cylinders. When Jamie Benn's hitting like he is, I don't know who he gave a black eye and a bloody nose to yesterday when they were in the scrum in front of the net. But when Jamie Benn's scoring like that and you have Joe Pavelski looking as good as he does back from that concussion. I think he has 6 goals this series in 4 games.
Yeah, because he scored 4 in that one.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he has 6 in this series so far. I don't remember if he got any
Probably
last night. But, I mean, when you got a player that's hitting like that, Tyler Seguin looks really good. Miro Heiskanen on defense, even though he went out, the game in this series with stitches, didn't come back to it, and then is now playing with the bubble.
Yeah.
It's a good series. What are you thinking about Dallas and Seattle?
I mean, it's just really like, you love to see it when it's like your team gets kind of destroyed in Game 3, right? Ottinger has a really bad game. He gets pulled, and he comes back, and he doesn't post a shutout, but he posts a shutout, I think, for the first 2 periods, right? Maybe
I think period and a half.
It's like a period and a half, but it's still impressive. It's what you want to see if you want to make a championship run.
Yep.
That your goalie can step up to the challenge after he gets his head blasted off, basically.
Lord Stanley's Cup.
But I like it. I think they're showing that they actually kind of have a chance to win this series. And they're not just going to lie down to Seattle like the Avalanche did.
That was solid. Now, moving on to the next series, because there's nothing else that needs to be said on that one. We got the Vegas Golden Knights and the Edmonton Oilers, and Vegas is up 2-1 in that series. Man, watching Jack Eichel go against Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl is really, really fun. Mm-hmm. I think the Oilers have to win. This is a must-win game.
In any situation, you could go up 3-1. I think it's a must-win game.
Absolutely. Oilers have to win this game. And it's just that simple. Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, two best players in the world. And they've been playing like it the whole series. Mm-hmm. They just got to close out, and at the end of games, like I said, they got to close out. They got to finish the game, and they got to not let up on defense. They're letting in some weak goals, but at the same time, I think the goaltending was a little bit of a question going into the series. But we'll see what happens. Like I said, I hope the Oilers kind of squeak it out because I really want to see McDavid on to the next round in Draisaitl. But we'll see what happens with that one. Do you have anything to hit on that one?
No, but do they play tonight?
Yes, they do.
All right, we'll be watching that one.
Yeah, we'll absolutely be watching that one. Then we got Carolina against the New Jersey Devils. Carolina is actually up 3-1 in that series. That one, I'm definitely wrong on. I thought that New Jersey, if you handle a team as good as the Rangers, I thought that Carolina was going to be a team that they matched up well against. I thought they were faster than them, but Carolina's just played all around better hockey. I think that Carolina's, 3-1. I don't think the Devils come back from that series. I think Carolina moves on to the next round, and then moving on to the next series, you have Toronto and you have Florida. And you have Florida up 3-0 in that series. Another one I'm eating my words on, but the story for Toronto is that Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, their core 4 have not scored. Tavares, they haven't, their team hasn't, put any in the net, and when you have your top players not scoring, it's going to be a long series, and it's 3-0. I think that one's just about over. You know what I mean? I think that one's pretty much done. But that's really it for the NHL. We'll see, who moves on. But then you got Florida, most likely Carolina. That's going to be a good series. I think that either team, I think that series goes 7.
So?
I think it goes 7. I think either team can move on. Right now, I'm not going to pick because I want to wait till the next series is over. But I think that Carolina has surprised a lot of folks, and I think that they're a very fast hockey team, and Sebastian Aho is playing at a level that is very high right now.
Yeah.
And we'll see what happens with the series.
I don't know. It's when you look at that Carolina team, it's like, can they continue doing what they're doing? Because they're just surprising people, right? I mean, I don't know. With Carolina, did I say Carolina or Florida?
Carolina.
Oh, okay. I meant to say Florida. They're surprising a lot of people. Obviously, they're.
Oh yeah.
They play a really, really good series, and they're up 3-0, and no one expected that to happen.
Nobody.
Right? If they take it, if they go on to the next one, which they probably will, I think they will probably play a Carolina team that is probably better than them.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of up to them to. You said this before, to bring them down to their level.
Yeah.
If they want to get to if it gets this far and they want to get to the championship.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think it's fun. You should tune in to watch if you're not watching the hockey NHL playoffs.
It's great. Tanner's a new hockey fan. If you didn't listen a couple pods ago, so it's great
cool
to see him get into the sport, and I think it's the hardest trophy to win in sports. I'll be honest with you. You have guys like we were talking about last night outside. Mm-hmm. You got guys like Joe Thornton who tore their ACL and MCL and still played.
And then he played.
You've got guys with like separated shoulders, and that's not even bad.
I mean, the defender for Dallas got hit with a puck in the face.
Miro Heiskanen.
Yeah, and then he came back and he played tonight. And he got hit in the face, I mean, like 2 days ago.
Yeah.
And he was...
Stitches are still visibly swollen, has a bucket on his face, and is still getting in scrums.
Yeah.
Hockey is... for any parents listening to the podcast, go stick your kid in hockey. It's the best sport on the planet to play.
It is fun.
But now, moving on, we
got one more topic.
Well, on the NHL?
Not an NHL.
No. Moving on to the Champions League.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Go ahead and hit it, Tanner.
So, 2 games have been played for the first legs of the semifinals for Champions League. If you haven't been watching, it's been Real Madrid and Manchester City, and they tied 1-1 yesterday in the first leg.
Yep.
I don't remember. I think they played in Real Stadium.
They played in Real.
Yeah. And then the other series was 2-0 for Inter Milan against AC Milan. And I don't know. I was excited for that match, but it was honestly really boring.
Yeah.
Inter Milan was up 2-0 early, and they just didn't look like they were competing. Like AC Milan, they started to get it towards like the end of the game, but it just wasn't really enough. And they had chances, and they just looked really nervous, honestly. And I don't know. It's kind of disappointing because I thought that AC Milan team was pretty good, but they were just getting smacked around by Inter.
Yeah.
What did you think of the Real game? Because I know you watched that one.
I mean, the thing with Real is I think Real lost that game.
Yeah.
I think Real had that game. I think Vinny Velasquez Jr. I think is a world-class football player. It's just that simple. Number 12 on Real, his name's escaping right now. He's a young prospect that played really well, but he gave up a couple. He gave up the only goal for City.
Yeah.
He passed it right up the middle of the field. Turned it way too slow of a pass in that point in the game, and City pounced on it.
Yeah.
And when City steals a game like that, and now they're going back to their home stadium, I don't know if Real makes it out of that round.
It's hard to say they can.
I don't know if they make it out of that round. Then again, when was the last time Real hasn't been to the Champions League final or Champions League semifinal? I don't know. It's been a long time. They've been knocking my squad PSG out for the last 18th years. But Real should have won that game. And Holland didn't get going at all.
Which is nice to see if you're a Real fan.
Which is nice to see, but now he's at home.
Yeah, but now, City has just weapons. I'm pretty sure Kevin De Bruyne, he was the one who scored the goal.
Oh, yeah.
And he, it's just...
Scored in the last 3 Champions League semifinals.
That was a crazy stat.
Last 3... Kevin De Bruyne is another world-class player, and when you can strike it from outside the box like that with ease...
Yeah, that's what he does.
That's what he does, and that's what he's done for... Yeah, it's what he's been doing, but I think Real is clearly the faster team, but City has some very physical players. So does Real.
Yeah.
And I'm specifically speaking about Holland. I don't think De Bruyne is necessarily a physical player, but I think that De Bruyne creates space very well. Mm-hmm. And he's really slow, so it's kind of weird how he does it. But there's a lot of football players or soccer players that have been really, really slow and have created space like that. But I think City takes it. I don't think Real makes it out of there. I think that if Real would have gone up 1-0, like they should have 2-0, honestly, then I think it would have been a different series. But the other series with the 2 Italy teams, I didn't get to watch that game, but I heard I think they scored both goals in the first 15 minutes of the game, and then after that it was just pretty much a defensive battle.
Pretty much.
And that's kind of what happens with soccer, but. You got one more leg, and I've seen crazier things happen.
I have too, and it's just the thing that's kind of disappointing about AC Milan is they had chances, and they had a lot of chances. They just didn't really do anything with them. They got down to the box, and they would just kind of throw the ball away, or they would just kind of like miss a touch. And they had every opportunity to win that game, but they just didn't. Hopefully, it's just kind of like a stage fright thing. But now they're in an 0-2 deficit, and I don't see them coming back out of it.
You got to really choke.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially in soccer.
But in the other series too, I told you this, but I think the winner of the Champions League comes out of that match alone, just because it's like how are you going to contend against either City or Real?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't think you can. Honestly, yeah. I don't think you can. And if they do, and if they win, heck yeah. You know what I mean? Heck yeah. That's what I'm going for.
I like it,
but at the same time, it would be really cool to see Holland cap off this historic season in the Premier League with a Champions League.
Yeah. Like I said,
that would be cool.
I told you they never won it before. How surprising is that?
I still don't believe it.
Yeah, they never won it.
I literally still don't believe it. But now, moving on to football.
American football. We had a draft recently.
We did have a draft recently, and I released an article like I do every year. It's on rdhsports.net. It is the full draft rankings of each team. It's very simple, just letters, you know what I mean? Just grades. I graded on a D to A+ scale, and I was very critical of these grades, but how I did it, nice. It's all good for those listening. Technical difficulty. Now we're good. With this article and the way I graded these teams, I graded them off of players still on the board. So that was a very big factor in this grade and how I grade every year, because there's a lot of prospects still on the board, and you have teams like the Eagles coming out of the draft, right? Getting somebody, getting Jalen Carter at 9, getting is it Smith? I think it's doing Smith out of Georgia as well. Then pulling everybody else that they got in the draft. It's really hard to go against teams like that, but you have so many teams, those guys fall, right? So that's kind of how I looked at this draft and graded it. So jumping right in, going alphabetical order here. We got the Arizona Cardinals. I gave them a B+. Round 1, pick 6. Actually, first let me give props. We're looking at ProFootballNetwork.com here. Matthew Canada, and he has the picks. I'm going to read those off. So round 1, pick 6. We had Paris Johnson, the offensive tackle out of Ohio State, get picked. I thought that was very early for that, but he's a very athletic offensive tackle, so I understood why they did it. Then the second round, they took the edge out of LSU with B.J. Ojulari. Round 3, they took Garrett Williams, the cornerback out of Syracuse. And then another pick in round 3 at 94, they took Michael Wilson out of Stanford, the wide receiver. And I really gave them a B+ because Paris Johnson is extremely athletic at the tackle position. Mm-hmm. And then you have B.J. Ojulari, which was a clear need, and he's a very speedy pass rusher. I think he adds very good depth at that point. Garrett Williams was a 3rd, 4th round grade, so I thought it was a really good value pick there. And then Michael Wilson, the wide receiver out of Stanford, adding more weapons for Kyler Murray.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of it. I mean, I thought that the offensive tackle pick was pretty good. I didn't think it was the outstanding pick of the draft, but I thought it made sense for the team. Like you're saying, it fills a need and it just makes sense for the team. I don't know. I think it just makes sense with the defensive end. What school is he from? LSU. Well, the only mind that comes to mind when I think of LSU pass rushers is Caleb on Chason.
Yeah. Well, Ojulari, I'm pretty sure, has a brother that is already in the NFL. If I'm not mistaken.
Aziz Ojulari?
Pretty sure that's his brother, or they're related. Jump into the Atlanta Falcons. I gave them also a B+. They took Bijan Robinson, round 1, pick 8. My goodness, we talked about it last pod.
It's hard not to.
That one right there gave him a B+, building around him. Then you have, in round 2, pick 38, they got Matthew Bergeron, the guard out of Syracuse. Clear need, top guard, round 2, great pick. Then Zach Harrison, the edge out of Ohio State. That's in round 3 to get a guy like that. Really, really good. Falcons did a good draft.
That's all they had?
Well, no, I'm not hitting on every single pick because we'd be here for about 5 hours. Hitting on the fallers, those guys. So Baltimore Ravens also B+. I promise I didn't give everybody B+. It's just the first 3. Zay Flowers, wide receiver out of Boston College. We talked about it last pod about how it's literally the exact same pick as Hollywood Brown, but it's a need, and I get it when drafting off need. Then they got Trenton Simpson in round 3, the linebacker out of Clemson, which was my number 3 linebacker. And to get him in the 3rd round, that's very solid. And then they added an edge from Ole Miss with Tobias Robinson. So Baltimore Ravens getting good or getting even better, and when you have those better teams getting even better with the draft, it starts to get a little scary.
Yeah, I agree.
Because now we're jumping to the next team, the Buffalo Bills, who have an A-. They have the first A on the board. They didn't quite get an A. They got an A-. And for those of you who haven't kept up with football, Buffalo's already a very good team. Arguably AFC Championship every year, I would say, or bust, if not Super Bowl.
I mean, yeah, that's what they want to make, right?
Yeah, and
who did they lose to this past year?
Dude, wasn't it the Bengals?
It was the Bengals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Joe Shiesty took him out.
Ah, that's right.
Yeah.
And it was convincing.
It was not even close.
Yeah.
Yeah, Josh Allen didn't look good. But don't worry, I got him in a league. He's my keeper. Same with him. Well, don't worry. They got Dalton Kincaid, the best tight end in the draft, somehow right before the Cowboys at pick 25. Then they added the best guard in the draft, a first-round prospect at pick 59 in the second round with Osiris Torrance, the guard out of Florida. He was my best guard in the draft. That's why they have an A-. Then they got the linebacker Dorian Williams out of Tulane. That's all I'm going to say because he was a top 5 linebacker. If I keep going, like I said, 5 hours here. Real quick, hitting them. But the Buffalo Bills continue to get better. And man, the AFC I feel like is just loaded up.
Well, I mean, Rodgers just moved over there. Like,
not to mention Rodgers is with the Jets now.
Yeah, I mean, the NFC is like, nothing compared to the AFC.
The NFC East, with right there with the Cowboys and the Eagles, those are arguably 2 top teams in the NFC, if not 1 and 2. In the same division. It's not like the AFC. Then the Carolina Panthers. They got a C+ for me. First C of the board. They got Bryce Young, which was a great pick. Obviously, I think that's the reason they didn't get lower than that. But then they get the wide receiver out of Ole Miss, Jonathan Mingo at pick 39, the edge out of Oregon, DJ Johnson. I think both of those picks were minimum of a round early. And with the wide receiver sitting there on the board to pair up with Bryce Young, I don't really understand the fit. But once again, I'm not an NFL GM, and I'm sitting on my couch.
Yeah, I mean, they made a lot of transfers in free agency, so I think you got to consider that as well. I feel like they're just comfortable with their wide receiver room if they don't make that kind of pick, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. They added Adam Thielen, and I don't really know who else.
Yeah, I mean,
and they got rid of DJ Moore, so they don't have him.
Yeah, I mean, Carolina's clearly a rebuild team. That's why they traded up to get the number 1 overall pick to get Bryce Young. But then you got the Chicago Bears, a B-. They got an offensive tackle out of Tennessee, Darnell Wright, very athletic. I think it was a little early, but with Justin Fields, I really like the pick. Then they got arguably the number 2 or 3 defensive tackle in the draft, whichever experts board you're looking at, with Gervon Dexter, the defensive tackle out of Florida, and then somehow they got Tyreek Stevenson, the cornerback out of Miami. And in the 4th round, they pulled Zach Pickens, the defensive tackle out of South Carolina. Both of those guys I had around earlier, and they got them. So really, really good pick by the Chicago Bears. You not really used to seeing the Bears pick very good in the draft, and they are. And Justin Fields, I have him in my Dynasty League in fantasy football for a reason. I've followed him since he was a 5-star prospect in high school in Dallas, and I don't think he lost a game for a very long time. I don't know if it was in Dallas where he went, but I've been following him since high school, and to see him in the NFL and get more athletic offensive linemen, it's going to be fun to watch him run for I don't know how many yards this season. Maybe he touches Lamar Jackson's rushing yards in a single season with like 1,200. Maybe that's not
He
a
can
crazy
do it.
stat.
I don't know what they even plan to do with Justin Fields at this point.
What do you mean?
Like, just like, obviously he's their quarterback of the future, but
okay, I was about to say.
No, don't get rid of him. He's amazing. But like, what do you do? How do you build around him? Like, which direction do they want to go?
I mean, they're doing a lot.
Yeah, but
they're bringing in a lot of players.
I mean, what is they're going to be their big focus though? Is what I'm asking.
I think.
How does that offense run?
I think what they're going to do. I think a lot of what they're going to do is going to be a lot of option.
Yeah,
I think there's going to be a lot of 2-back sets. I think there's going to be a lot of Yeah, I mean, like I said, option. I think there's going to be a lot of underneath routes. I also think Justin Fields has a freaking cannon.
He does.
So I think that with them adding the targets that they added in free agency, I think that team could also pass the ball a little bit more. But who knows? I could see the Bears being a playoff team, and I could also see the Bears completely missing the playoffs.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I have no idea what the Bears are going to do next season.
It's just hard with like the inconsistency around like the Bears offense last year is to call them a playoff team, in my opinion. I don't know.
I mean, we'll see what happens. I think that Justin Fields this year, hot take, takes a clear step to be a top quarterback in this league.
Yeah.
I think it is going to be a clear step. I think Trevor Lawrence took that step last season. Mm-hmm. I think that you saw flashes of it with Justin Fields, but I think the consistency is going to come more in with Justin Fields. And like I said, with the weapons that they added in free agency and the draft that they had, it's really hard not to root for that team.
I agree.
But it's the Bears, and they haven't been very successful recently, so we'll see what happens, right?
I mean, from a front office perspective, I feel like this year or next year is, I mean, you're getting in on a make or break year for Justin Fields, right?
Yeah, but the way I look at it is who is going to be a better quarterback to replace him at that point? Now, if they're a bottom five team in the league,
yeah,
there's a guy named Caleb Williams that's going to be sitting there next year for USC.
A Heisman Trophy winner.
Yes, he could go again this year. But do I think the Bears are going to take Justin Fields and go for Caleb Williams? No, that'd be, in my opinion, be stupid. I think Justin Fields is a quarterback for the future. I think he's going to get signed for a long-term contract.
I think so.
I think that he is not necessarily proved himself to the point of getting a contract now, but I do think at the end of this season he will, and arguably maybe even a couple games into this next season, because the only thing lacking with Justin Fields is consistency.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the only thing.
Yeah.
And for me, if I am a front office guy, like you're saying, front office worker, I'm not going to find a better quarterback out. And Trevor Lawrence and him, I think, are the next. I think you're already having the old guard kind of change with Aaron Rodgers kind of going away. Drew Brees already went away. Peyton did. Tom went. Then now you got Josh Allen being the face of the league. You got Patrick Mahomes being the face of the league. You got Joe Burrow. And then you got Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott, and then you got these newcomers with Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, and you'll see if Kenny Pickett can do something in Pittsburgh. I'm not comparing them at all, but I'm just saying that's another guy that could potentially elevate, with another year of NFL coaching, another year off season, and everything. And like I said, I'm obviously going to be a bit of a homer with Justin Fields because I've been following him for so long. But I watch a lot of tape and I watch a lot of football, and he's a solid quarterback.
I mean, he went to Ohio State,
Yeah, OHIO.
That's pretty cool.
And the Cincinnati Bengals, I gave them a B- in their draft. They first round, pick 28. They somehow got Miles Murphy, the edge out of Clemson. Yes, like my second or third defense edge in the draft. Then they got DJ Turner, the cornerback out of Michigan. And then they somehow got Jordan Battle, the safety out of Alabama. All really good picks. And once again, you're starting to see a trend here with all these very good teams. The Bengals are picking very well.
Yeah.
And that's pretty scary for the AFC again.
I mean, we talked about it last podcast where it's like, how surprising is it that the Bengals are just sitting at the end of the draft and picking good players? And just like some of them are going to hit, some of them are not going to hit, right? Just because of the nature of the players that are available to you at that time. But it's impressive. I really like the Miles Murphy pick. What grade did you give him overall?
I gave him a B-.
B-. I like the Miles Murphy pick. I think he's going to be fun to watch with Trey Hendrickson on the other side.
Yeah.
Hopefully he can become something big.
We'll see what happens. Then
I like it.
jump into your Cleveland Browns.
Oh gosh.
I gave him a B.
I like their first selection.
I gave him a B. They didn't pick until the third round.
Yes.
But they got Cedric Tillman, the wide receiver out of Tennessee, in the third round. Like I said, that's a very good pick.
Tennessee.
In the third round, I saw him going in the second. Somehow they got the defensive tackle out of Baylor, Saaki Ika. And then in the fourth round, they got DeJuan Jones, the offensive tackle out of Ohio State.
Yeah.
Somehow. All of those guys were top. I don't think Cedric Tillman was, but I know that Jones and Ika were top 75 players for me in this draft.
I mean, when you look at it from like a perspective of what this front office did to go get Deshaun Watson, obviously he's a very controversial player, but you can't deny what he's put out on the football field, right? That's what they wanted him for, and they're taking a chance on it. So after they take that chance, they kind of ask themselves, like, what do we have to do now in the draft? So we got to load them up with weapons and kind of patch up what we're bad at, what every team wants to do. And a lot of that is DT for the Cleveland Browns and wide receiver.
Yep.
They've been struggling to find a good one. They got Amari Cooper. He's pretty good.
Yep.
But no one else has really shined as like a number one or a clear-cut number two. You have Donovan Peoples-Jones, which a lot of people like, but I don't see his time in Cleveland being that much longer, Because I watch Cleveland football, and it's kind of hard to say that they didn't really want that Cedric Tillman pick. If it was last year, I really would have wanted George Pickens, and he was available, and they didn't pick him, right?
It's true. George Pickens would have been a very nice addition to that team.
But I really like the draft from that standpoint of they're just doing what they can with the stuff that they have, Obviously, it's not going to be the craziest draft in the world. You're not going to get the most insane players having that low of a position in the draft. You just sold your future for your future quarterback.
You better hope he hits this season.
Exactly, but you're just doing the best with what you have, and I'm a big fan of it. I like the DT pick, and I really like the Cedric Tillman pick.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dallas Cowboys, here we go.
We already talked about it, but here we go again.
C-. I gave the Cowboys a C-. Mozzie Smith, the defensive tackle out of Michigan, they took. Like I said, last pod, I think it was around early. Luke Schoonmaker, little bit early, and Demario Overshawn a little bit early. Like I said, we talked about it last pod, so we're not going to jump into it a bunch, but I gave him a C- because like I said, the guys that were left on the board.
I guess so. I think it's a little harsh, though.
Yeah, but I'm always harsh with the Cowboys.
I guess so, but it's just you don't know about these players, though. That's just the way that
nobody does.
Yeah, they've just gone this way of drafting now.
Yeah,
and they're just picking people that they like rather than people who could, everybody likes. It's very hit or miss with them.
Yeah, you have no idea how these guys will pan out, but we will see. Now, jumping to the Denver Broncos, another C- team. They got Marvin Mims, the wide receiver out of Oklahoma in round 2. Then they got Drew Sanders, the linebacker out of Arkansas. Then they snagged Riley Moss, the cornerback out of Iowa in round 3. And then in the 6th round, they got J.L. Skinner, the safety out of Boise State. That was it. That was all their draft picks. So all they had were 4. Marvin Mims I thought was a little bit early. Drew Sanders very solid. That's the reason they didn't get a little bit worse than that. But Drew Sanders was a really good pick there with Arkansas. Very good. Very, very good pick.
I like him.
In round 3. But yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty simple. They didn't have a lot of draft picks, and I think that there was a lot of players in this draft that you should have traded up for. So that's kind of my take on the Broncos. I think that they need a lot of help. I don't think they're as close as everybody says they are. I think that they need a little bit more depth. And I think that where do you get your depth? Especially the cheapest you can possibly get it in the draft. And they only drafted 4 players. So the chances of 4 players not even drafting until they did in the later rounds, I don't know, right? I don't know.
It's hard to say because it's the same thing with Cleveland, very similar situation. They're putting all their eggs in one basket. Yep. And so far that basket is on the ground, torn apart in pieces. You have to have a good year. It's just that simple,
Yeah, literally. And then jumping to the Detroit Lions. So in round 1 at pick 12, they did a very big surprise pick in the draft with Jamar Gibbs, the running back out of Alabama. Then they followed up at pick 18 with Jack Campbell, the linebacker out of Iowa. Then Sam Laporte, the tight end out of Iowa in round 2. Round 2 again, they also get Brian Branch, the safety out of Alabama. And then somehow in round 3, they get Hendon Hooker, the quarterback out of Tennessee.
That's crazy.
I'm just going to stop there because they had great other. Actually, hold on. In round 3, pick 96, they got Broderick Martin, the defensive tackle out of Western Kentucky, who shot up the boards after the Senior Bowl, or right after the Senior Bowl. I saw him his stock start going up big time. Dude.
That's a draft.
That's a really good draft, and they got an A- because of it.
I think it's fair.
They got an A- because they not only did they take every position that they needed or a guy that they lost, but they then trade DeAndre Swift to the Eagles. They already signed David Montgomery, and now you're bringing in Jamar Gibbs and David Montgomery. David Montgomery is the absolute power bruiser, going to run right up the middle back. and then you have Jamar Gibbs, who is literally Alvin Kamara coming out of Alabama.
It's such a nice little duo that they've put together. And for what? For so cheap. It's so cheap. A rookie and a cheap contract in David Montgomery.
This is how dynasties get built. It's through the draft. Sometimes free agency works. Tampa did that. But at the same time, they drafted a lot of those guys.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
I mean, thing is, like, I'm not saying that they're going to be in contention for the NFC North, but the Packers, we don't know what they're going to do, right? They just lost.
I think they have a better record than the Packers next year.
Yeah, I mean, they lost a lot of their players. Also, obviously Aaron Rodgers and a bunch of their receiving core.
That's all that matters.
That's all that matters.
They lost Aaron.
No more Aaron.
He's gone. The Packers. No disrespect to Chris if he's listening, but the Packers next year I do not think win that division.
But they got a legitimate shot. The Lions do at the playoffs.
Yes.
In a 2-year turnaround from being like one of the worst teams in the NFL.
Yeah. That is a hell of a football team run by a hell of a football coach.
I like it. I like it a lot. Yeah. At the time with the pick with Jahmyr Gibbs, it was just like, what are you doing? You have 3 running backs on the roster. But, obviously you said it just good job on the Lions. And we didn't talk about it all, but the Hendon Hooker pick from Tennessee. I mean, talking about a kid like that is just he's got a highlight reel at this point. Like he has some quality wins as you saw his senior season.
Quality wins in not garbage time. Nothing like that. Hendon Hooker's a player that he is not going to play next season. He's not going to play. It is Goff. It is Goff's team right now. The contract that Goff is on, there's no way they can sit him on the bench. I don't know how Goff is doing it. But also Jameson Williams comes back after a 6-game suspension from gambling. Okay. Not even gonna go into that one. And
I forgot about that.
and you already have Amos St. Brown. Now you have these running backs. You have Penei Sewell, arguably the best young tackle in the entire game. I don't know, man. That's a good team. And then they start adding these defensive weapons as well. Mm-hmm. And their defense, I mean, that's the heart of their team. That's what that's the heart of their team. But I don't know. Well, so I'm excited to watch the Lions, and I haven't been able to say that in a while.
Right?
Yeah,
I agree.
Back when Megatron was there, Calvin Johnson, that I watched every game.
That was fun.
One of my favorite wide receivers of all time.
Got the pleasure of seeing him live.
Many
before he retired.
Yeah, many times. Now the Green Bay Packers, I gave them a B. They got Lucas Van Ness, the edge out of Iowa, at round 1, pick 13, and then they got Luke Musgrave in round 2, and then they got Jalen Reed, the wide receiver out of Michigan State. Then they get another tight end, Tucker Kraft out of South Dakota State, and Lucas Van Ness out of Iowa. I wrote about it, and we talked about it last pod, so I'm not going to hit a bunch on it, but perfect pairing with Gary on that line. Absolute perfect pairing. And then they needed tight ends. Yeah. And they drafted 2 very good tight ends in perfect spots. And it's just that simple with the Packers. And like Tanner said, we have no clue what the Packers are going to do next season. I don't see the Packers being a playoff team, in my opinion. That'll be my hot take for this podcast.
Is it really a hot take at this point? They lose their franchise quarterback, Hall of Fame quarterback.
I mean, I don't know about a hot take, but at the same time,
it's a take.
I guess I just can't remember the last time the Packers haven't won that division. But then again, they've had Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna really see how good LaFleur is.
That's true.
We're gonna see how good of a head coach he really is.
That's true.
Because he's had Aaron Rodgers for his whole career, basically.
That's true.
As a head coach. But.
That's very true. Then we got the Houston Texans. C.J. Stroud, round 1, pick 2. Trade back into the draft, round 1, pick 3. Take Will Anderson Jr., the edge out of Alabama. Then round 2, they took Juice Scrubs out of Penn State. Juice. I did not think he was going to get picked in the first 2 rounds. I was thinking like round 4, but Texans.
They want him.
Know a lot more than me, and that was a solid one. And then last one we'll hit on is Tank Dell, the wide receiver out of Houston. That was a great pick. I had him being in the 3rd round. But when you have a quarterback like C.J. Stroud coming in, and then you have Will Anderson Jr., who they knew that was their guy, and they traded back in and they got him, and then you're adding another wide receiver with Tank Dell, who, like I said, could have gone around earlier. But I think the Texans are loaded up, and I think that they know what they're doing. I'm
a fan of it. I mean, just specifically like the jumping back in to into the draft. What was it, pick 3, to get one of the best defensive players in the draft?
Yep.
Like, I mean, we talked about it last episode, but it's impressive. It's very nice, and they're finally using these draft picks for something. They got a bunch of them. You might as well use them, right?
Exactly. Then you got the Indianapolis Colts, who nailed it in the mock. Anthony Richardson, the quarterback out of Florida. Don't think he's going to play this season, but great pick there. Then they got Julius Brents, the cornerback out of Kansas State. Then they got Josh Downs, the wide receiver out of North Carolina. But like I said, Indianapolis Colts B-. I think that the Anthony Richardson pick was really, really good.
Yeah.
I think the rest of them were pretty average, aside from Josh Downs, the wide receiver out of North Carolina. Mm-hmm. And then we got the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are a fun team, but didn't have the best draft. I gave them a C+. Great pick out of Oklahoma, the offensive tackle with Anton Harrison. But after that, I think everybody else was taken a little bit early. But another pick I really liked, but them is round 3. They took Tate Bigsby, the running back out of Auburn, who was shooting up the draft boards toward the end. And then Brenton Strange in the second round, the tight end out of Penn State. I didn't know he was going to go that high. I thought around 4 or 5. And then we got the Kansas City Chiefs. For once, I didn't give them a crazy good grade. I gave them a C+. They took the defensive end out of Kansas State, round 1. I'm Felix. I'm sorry, I can't say your last name. Great player. Very good value pick right there. That's why they gave them the C+. But everybody, Rashee Rice, wide receiver out of SMU, round 2, pick 55. I thought that was a little bit of a stretch right there. But once again, it's Kansas City, and you have Mahomes, so every receiver you have is going to be very good.
That's fair.
Yeah. Every receiver. Then we got the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders, I gave them a B. Tyree Wilson, the edge out of Texas Tech, with round 1, pick 7. Then they got Michael Mayer, the tight end out of Notre Dame, in the second round. And then they got Byron Young, the defensive line out of Alabama. And then Trey Tucker, the wide receiver out of Cincinnati there. That's a really, really solid draft. That's really cool. And that's why the Raiders got that draft grade, because when you get Michael Mayer and Tyree Wilson in the same draft, that's a win. Yeah,
fair enough. I mean, they lose Darren Waller in free agency, and I mean, it kind of looks like a blessing in disguise, because and they get a young kid. I'm really happy with it. I like it a lot. They got their good edge rusher too, with Tyree from Texas Tech, right?
Yeah, Tyree Wilson from Texas Tech.
He's pretty good.
Texas Tech edge rusher going in the first round. That's pretty crazy to think about, but he's a great player. He's a really, really good player. Then we got the Los Angeles Chargers, round 1, pick 21. They added arguably the number 1 or number 2 wide receiver in the draft with Quentin Johnson out of TCU. That's when they had the run of wide receivers go there in the 20s. Then, oh man, I'm going to mess this up. USC, round 2, pick 54. Tulide, I can't even try to say the name. And then round 3, pick 85, they had DeJuan Henley, the linebacker out of Washington State. Right there, that's going to give them a B, just because of their first round pick with Quentin Johnson, the wide receiver at TCU. They don't need another wide receiver, but they got the second or arguably the first best one in the draft.
Yeah, I mean, he's really, really good, and it doesn't even matter. When Keenan Allen is gone, you're not going to miss him.
No, you're not going to miss him at all. Then you got the Los Angeles Rams, right down the street from me in California from where I'm at. They got... in round 2, they didn't even pick round 1. Finally, they're back up there. Stafford, they traded House, right? Yeah.
Got a Super Bowl.
Yeah, they got Steve Avila, the guard out of TCU. Solid pick on round 2. Then Byron Young, the edge out of Tennessee. And then Kobe Turner, the defensive tackle out of Wake Forest. And then Stetson Bennett in round 4, the quarterback out of Georgia.
Forgot about that. He went
to be the successor for Matthew Stafford. We'll see. I don't know if Bennett's going to be the successor, but that's a hell of a story if you've never heard of it.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, Bennett came from a walk-on at Georgia, and man, that's a pick you root for, and they get a B+ because of that draft. So the Miami Dolphins get a B-. They got Cam Smith, the cornerback out of South Carolina, in round 2, pick 51. Devon Achane, running back from A&M, round 3, pick 84, and then they didn't pick until the 6th round with Elijah Higgins, the tight end out of Stanford, which was a really solid pick there in the 6th round, which is why I gave the Miami Dolphins a B-, because when you got a cornerback like Cam Smith sitting there and you got a halfback like Devon Achane, that's pretty hard to pass up, but that's a really, really good key positions added to your roster.
I know. Did you see the phone call, I think, with Devon Achane and Mike McDaniels?
No, I didn't.
It was pretty funny. He's just like, he called him up, he's in the draft room, and he's like, "Are you fast?"
That's awesome.
Because, they're just building speed, like in Miami. You've got Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and now Devon Achane.
Yeah.
And those are 3 offensive players that you can just unleash at any point in time.
It's going to be fun.
I like it.
It's going to be a really fun.
I like Achane a lot, and
yeah.
Obviously, I don't know if he's going to get up there in the NFL, but he's got some speed. He's got some breakaway speed.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Definitely some solid picks by the Dolphins, though. Yes. Also, literally favorite coach in the NFL.
He's funny.
Literally favorite coach in the NFL.
He's funny.
Gosh, he's hilarious. Then the Minnesota Vikings, I gave them a C. They got Jordan Addison, round 1, pick 23. Really, really good fit there.
Yeah.
Really, really good fit there. Then they didn't pick until round 3 with Mekhi Blackman, the cornerback out of USC. And, I'm not sure. Got the dogs running in the background.
Barking at something.
Yeah, barking at something. But, not sure really what they were thinking about with the other picks. I would say it did touch on need, but like I said, I really think the only pick that was their value pick was Jordan Addison, the wide receiver out of USC.
Yeah. I like the Jordan Addison pick.
I do.
I think it's fun, but I understand the grade. Based on one pick, you can't give him a good grade.
Exactly. Then you got the New England Patriots. I gave them a B-. Christian Gonzalez, somehow, the cornerback out of Oregon, who, most experts had, like I said, going very high. Mm-hmm. And they get him at 17. But then after that, I think it's kind of where you see the Patriots start drafting players that you're like, what in the world? But they always hit. You know what I mean? Like, they always hit. So you got Keon White, the edge out of Georgia Tech, which was, I thought, a couple rounds early. But, you're not going to tell Bill Belichick anything. They got a safety from Sacramento State who I did not do my homework on. Marty Mapu. And then they got Jake Matthews, who I know, the guard out of Troy. And then I got to call out the kicker, that they took in the 4th round because we got the same name, Chad Ryland out of Maryland.
That's pretty cool.
Arguably the best kicker in the nation.
You like to see it. Hey, Evan McPherson was a kicker taken somewhat early in the draft, right?
John Gruden took kicker in the 1st round.
That's true. He did do that.
He's also not a head coach. So moving past the New England Patriots, I used to really like John Gruden too. The New Orleans Saints, I gave them a B. They got Brian Brees, the defensive tackle out of Clemson, and pick 29. Very solid after trading for that one. Then they got Isaiah Foskey, the edge out of Notre Dame, in the 2nd round. And they got Keandre Miller, the running back out of TCU, in the 3rd round. So, New Orleans is Alvin Kamara, you don't know what's going to happen with the suspension. Them adding a running back in the 3rd round is a really good call. I would have liked to see it a round earlier, but at the same time, realistically, I don't think that the Saints will move on from Alvin Kamara just because that is their literal entire offense.
I don't know what they're going to be now with Derek Carr there, right?
That's such an odd...
It's very strange. I think it works. I just don't know what they're going to do, like how they're going to run their offense, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I have no opinion on them so far.
Yeah. And then we're jumping to the New York Giants. Hey, great draft by the Giants. I'm going to call it like I see it, B+. Deontay Banks, cornerback out of Maryland, pick 24. Could be your number 1 corner, and that is exactly what they needed because the Giants do not have corners at all on that team. Then they got arguably the best center in the draft. And when you're drafting a center at round 2, pick 57, he's out of Minnesota. John Michael Schmitz, my number 1 center, if not number 2.
Nice.
Man, that's a solid pick in round 2, pick 57. Then you got Jalen Hyatt, the wide receiver out of Tennessee in round 3.
That's nice.
That's a really, really nice pick.
That's a nice
Shout out to Felipe, my homie. That's his guy. Loves Jalen Hyatt. I think he's great. 3rd round grade. Took him in the 3rd round. And right now, the Giants could use wide receivers because they have Kenny Golladay, who's getting paid a lot of money, who's not doing anything. They have I think Richie James.
They got Richie James,
and who's pretty solid. And then they gave away. They traded the guy to the Chiefs. Kadarius Toney, thank you. Who I thought was pretty solid and has looked pretty solid with the Chiefs, and now has a Super Bowl.
They just didn't know how to use him, I think, was the problem.
Classic Dallas move with like all their tight ends aside from Jason Witten and Dalton Schultz.
Dalton Schultz was pretty okay.
Yeah, and then the New York Jets. I got the New York Jets getting a B-. Will McDonald, the edge out of Iowa State, in round 1, pick 15. Then they got Joe Tippmann, the center out of Wisconsin. That was my number one. That was my number one center. Then, Carter Warren, the offensive tackle out of Pittsburgh, is pretty good there in round 4. But, Will McDonald's definitely, I don't know if you need more help on that defensive line, but I understand why they did it. And then, Joe Tippmann, that's your franchise center.
Yeah.
You have a new quarterback that is going to be getting the ball and going to be teaching him. And I don't know what better pick you can get at that point than if you're a Jets fan, because you're sitting there going, well, we have Aaron Rodgers and pretty young receiving core. So not only is Aaron Rodgers going to teach this young receiving core, let's draft a center that gives him the ball every single play.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers and that guy are going to be tight, and it's a rookie, and I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
I think the Jets are doing things right.
I do too.
They got a small Super Bowl window with Aaron Rodgers, but it's there. It's a window. And they're just protecting him all that they can. Like, all right, let's do everything in our power to make sure Aaron Rodgers works.
They're loading up.
Yes.
They're absolutely loading up. Now, jumping to the Philadelphia Eagles. Yes, if you're watching, you see everything Cowboys behind us, and Tanner and I are wearing Cowboys jerseys. Prove to you I'm not a homer here. The Eagles had the best draft. It's not even close. It is literally not even close. The Eagles had the best draft. They take Jalen Carter, they trade to pick 9, somehow get arguably the best defensive tackle in the draft or defensive prospect in the draft aside from Will Anderson.
Yeah.
You're going to go right there with both of those two. Somehow get him. And then followed up another Georgia Bulldog, round 1, pick 30. They got Nolan Smith. Then I'm going to call the round 5 pick because they got another Georgia player. Ringo, the cornerback. Calais Ringo. And then Sidney Brown in round 3, the safety out of Illinois. Every need they needed, they got. Every need they needed, they got. They have a defensive tackle who is way less money for way longer.
Yeah.
And they have an edge who, like I said, his comparison is Hassan Reddick, who is also on the team.
Yeah.
And then they got a corner in round 5 that could have gone as high as round 3.
Yeah.
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 Cowboys fans, I don't know if we're going 2-0 against the Eagles this year.
Philly's a good team.
Philly's a really good team. But
really
here's the thing. If we don't go 2-0, we'll at least split.
Yeah. Cowboys got one.
We'll at least split. But Philadelphia Eagles, heck of a draft. Props to you. Easily the best draft. Now Pittsburgh Steelers, followed up by a really solid draft. Hey, the Pittsburgh Steelers out here getting they got Broderick Jones, the offensive tackle out of Georgia, round 1, pick 14. Somehow they got Joey Porter Jr., the cornerback out of Penn State, who is a first-round top 25 player for me, pick 32. They got Kenai Benton, the defensive tackle out of Wisconsin, who is top 5 defensive tackle for me in this draft in the second round, end of the second round. Then they somehow, at the end of the third round, get Darnell Washington, the tight end out of Georgia, who Dallas actually had at their visits, and easily has the highest ceiling in the tight end draft, in my opinion, in the tight end class.
Heck yeah.
Easily the highest ceiling. Could be the best player. Good job, Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
And Pittsburgh usually drafts a certain way, and they didn't really draft that way this draft. Mm-hmm. Usually they take, defensive ends, defensive lines, interior defensive line. That's where they're going to win. This year they kind of branched off a little bit, and with them taking an offensive tackle, it clearly shows that they want to build for Kenny Pickett, then following up with another cornerback and then a defensive tackle and a tight end. It really shows when you have 2 and 2 in your first 4 rounds, like 2 offensive players, 2 defensive players, in your first 3 rounds. That's even, that's balanced team, and I really like what Pittsburgh does. And guess what? You got Tomlin at the helm.
Yeah,
so minimum you're winning 8 games.
He'll make it work.
and by minimum 8 games, I actually probably take the back. Probably minimum winning like 9. Like Mike Tomlin, has he ever gone negative in his career?
Nope.
Yeah, I don't think he's ever gone negative in his career.
I thought it was going to happen this season, but it just didn't.
It didn't. That guy's a hell of a coach.
It's insane.
One of the best, and is probably going to be in the Hall of Fame, honestly.
Yeah, I think so.
Then the San Francisco 49ers, they got a C. They didn't pick until round 3. They got Cam Latu, 3rd round, tight end out of Alabama. Really good pick there, but I don't know. I don't know about that one. Brown, the safety out of Penn State, and then Jake Moody, the kicker out of Michigan in round 3. So
another kicker.
That was the best kicker in the nation, I think, in my opinion. That's why I said arguably the kicker. That's the best kicker in the nation, I think, for Michigan. But yeah, you know what I mean. It's kind of where I'm going. Then you got Seattle Seahawks, who another A. They added round 1 pick 5 Devon Witherspoon, round 1 pick 20. They got Jackson Smith and Jigba, the wide receiver out of Ohio State.
That's
Witherspoon was a cornerback out of Illinois.
That's also cool.
Exactly. And then round 2, they get Derek Hall, the edge out of Auburn. Oh, JK, they're not done round 2. They got Zach Sharman at the running back out of UCLA.
Damn.
That is just the first 2 rounds. That's the first 2 rounds.
They're just reloading, man.
It's the first 2 rounds. And they had a great draft after that, too. But, when you had the Seattle Seahawks trying to load up like that, and when you have Pete Carroll drafting like those dynasty days, because a couple of those guys are going to hit. There's no way a couple of those guys.
I think at least one out of 4 of those players is going to hit.
At least. And all those guys are arguably could be first round talents.
Oh, they're so good.
So Seattle, that's going to be a fun team to watch, and Geno's also on my fantasy team.
They were dead like a year ago, as we were thinking, like, oh, Russell Wilson is gone. They got Geno Smith at the helm. They're going to do nothing. Well, they make the playoffs, and they get 4 potential starters in the draft, preceding their playoff run.
In the first 2 rounds. Impressive.
Hats off to you, Seattle.
Yeah, very, very impressive. Seattle's second best grade in the draft with an A.
I'd never seen a faster rebuild.
Literally, in Pete Carroll's.
They just didn't even do it. They're like, let's skip this part. they went to being good again. Like, how do you do that?
Must be nice.
Yeah, true.
Must be really nice.
Dallas's rebuild just like 15 years.
Took a while. Yeah. Going to those Cowboy games, watching Quincy Carter. Those hurt. But hey, got to watch DeMarcus Ware. Got to watch Dat Wynn. Got to watch Michael Strahan sack whoever was playing quarterback. Drew Bledsoe a lot. Quincy Carter a lot. Got to watch Sean Taylor. It's one of my favorite players of all time. Got to watch him.
That was pretty cool.
Loved watching play. I mean, I feel like when you go to so many pro football games, obviously you're there watching your team and you're rooting for your team, but you're excited to see the other guys that are coming into play.
Yeah, because it's different when you see them in person.
Exactly. It's like we were fortunate enough this year to see Tom Brady.
Yeah, it's awesome.
We got to see Tom Brady. We've seen him twice. Saw Peyton Manning. Saw Peyton Manning actually run a touchdown in. You should look that play up.
Yeah, it's that touchdown.
Yep.
It's the one you're thinking.
It's the one that he literally walked faster or slower than my grandma does. Love you, Grandma. But there's no way that should have been a touchdown. Yeah, we were at that game. Then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, B- because they got Kalijah Kancey, the defensive tackle out of Pittsburgh, round 1, pick 19. Then they got Cody Motz, the offensive tackle out of North Dakota State. Then they got another center in round 5 that I really like, Dennis out of Pittsburgh. I think that he could potentially make the team and arguably be there in the future. Now, the Bucs have a really good center already. I think it's Jensen.
I think you're right.
I think it's Jensen. Literally looks like he walked off the farm. Like that dude, I know a lot of guys that look like him, but I've never met somebody that's that good at football. That guy is awesome. He has like long red hair. That guy's sick. He reminds me of like a Viking. You know what I mean? I would absolutely want that guy protecting me if I was a quarterback in the NFL. But yeah, like I said, you got Kalijah Kancey, the defensive tackle out of Pittsburgh. Cody Mock, he was another North Dakota State player that's getting drafted. You got Carson Wentz that started the trend forever ago, and then you got all these guys that are coming in still.
It just takes one to get you on the map.
Just takes one.
It just takes one. It's like, I mean, it's a stupid comparison if you hate A&M, but it's like with Johnny and A&M.
It's true.
You know?
Yeah, before that, it wasn't a lot.
No.
I mean, we had offensive linemen before that.
Yeah. I mean, you talked about Dat
Win. Like, yes, there was players, but to really put you on the map and, you know, you get a player like Carson Wentz, he signed another contract.
Yeah.
Right? Like he signed a big ticket contract. Then you have a lot of other players who are still coming out of there. You got tight ends. Mm-hmm. Wasn't Dallas Goedert? I don't know. I'm pretty sure Dallas Goedert was at North. No, Dallas Goedert was not at North Dakota State.
I don't.
He was not. I'm thinking of another tight end that came out of North Dakota State. But regardless, they've got some great prospects coming in, and I'm excited to see that program continuing to go. And there's the yellow and like white and green jerseys. You know, okay, not really a huge fan of, but rock and roll. You know what I mean? Rock and roll.
Yeah.
Then you got Tennessee Titans. I gave them a B-, literally because of Peter Skrinsky, the offensive tackle, round 1, pick 11. They got the best offensive tackle in the draft. Round 2, they take Will Levis, quarterback out of Kentucky.
I forgot he went to Tennessee.
And then they got Tyjae Spears, the running back out of Tulane. Those are some decent picks. That's why I gave them a B-. Running back they don't need, but you're seeing all this chatter of Derrick Henry going somewhere else.
Yeah. Plus, he's just getting up there in age. Like you can see the wear and tear in his body.
You can.
You can start to see it. I mean, he's got a couple years left of like good production.
Yeah.
And that's like good. It's not great.
Yeah, it is. It is literally just good production. And then, you know, like I said, they got Will Levis. He fell to the second round. They jumped very early, picked 33. Mm-hmm. Right? They got him real early. They got him real early, but I don't know. I think the Tennessee Titans are a team that is arguably on the cusp of breaking through.
It's hard.
But they're not drafting like it, in my opinion. They're not drafting like it. And to me, this draft told me that the Titans are going to start to go another direction, mainly because new quarterback and new running back.
It's hard to say that this style, like whatever they were trying to do with Derrick Henry and Tannehill, is going to work at all. Because they've tried it for a while now, and it just hasn't been fruitful. You haven't seen any results. Like the furthest they got was like the AFC Championship game.
Yeah.
And they didn't make it to the Super Bowl, and that was it. That was their peak.
Yeah.
And Tannehill is questionable quarterback at best, right? And they traded away their number one wide receiver in A.J. Brown to the Eagles, who is a number one wide receiver.
Yeah.
and they didn't think
blossomed.
so. Exactly.
Blossomed in Philly.
Yeah, like it just doesn't. I don't really know what's going on over there, but they can turn it around, but they need to do it quickly.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
they need to do it this next season, and if they don't, then these guys are gone.
Yeah,
these guys are gone. Last team, Washington. Like I said, scale D, A+. Haven't heard the D yet. Washington.
D.
Got a D. Round 1, pick 16. They got Emmanuel Forms, the cornerback out of Mississippi State. I really think that was their only solid pick in the whole draft. No disrespect to any of these other guys. Round 2, they got another cornerback, Jatarius Martin out of Maryland. Then they got a center, Ricky Stromberg out of Arkansas. Round 4, they got Braden Daniels, the offensive tackle out of Utah. KJ Henry was a pretty solid pick there with the edge out of Clemson. But I don't know. Washington, I thought could have had a lot better of a draft. I think that they could have addressed a lot more positions of need. Yeah. They have a really good defensive line. I don't think they need to add anything there. They need a lot of linebacker help. They need a lot of corner help. Clearly, they added 2 of them. But I think both of those corners, I think there were better corners on the board. They need safety help.
They had a chance at Christian Watson.
Christian Gonzalez out of Oregon?
Yeah, him.
Yeah,
Christian Gonzalez.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. They passed him on Christian Gonzalez. Oh, that's very true. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. You know, that's what makes mediocre football teams, right? We could be wrong. Like I said, a couple of couch warriors here, but I don't know. Washington, to me, did not step up to the plate in that draft. They did not step up to the plate at all, in my opinion. But who knows? We'll see what happens this next year. But that is it for this podcast, folks. Thanks for tuning in. If you watched the live version, glad you got to see the Pops Man Cave in the memorabilia room. Next week we'll be we'll chatting more sports.
Heck yeah. All right. Well, we'll see you later.